Here are some of the movies with the most amazing visual effects. Let's start with an all-time classic when it comes to imagining the non-existent, and that's the 1993 Jurassic Park. This Steven Spielberg movie brought back animals from the past that had died out. And in this movie, we see that a lot of the content is made up of both computer-generated images and puppets that move. It combines digital art with useful things in a way that looks natural. The scene with the Tyrannosaurus in the paddock is easily one of the most famous scenes in movie history. Spielberg's masterful use of scale framing, along with his use of ambient lighting and weather, gives the dinosaurs in the movie a sense of weight and power. CGI effects are not as important as real-world ones. Most of the shots of dinosaurs are props and animatronics, which seems like it's doing pretty well for the movie. The result is just amazing though. Even after almost 30 years, many of the scenes still look very real. While this one looks at bringing the past to the present, there's another movie that takes us to the future, and that's X-Men: Days of Future Past. We've seen a lot of special effects in superhero movies, but no doubt, the X-Men movies are known for having different levels of quality. Early movies like X-Men and X2, X-Men United, had trouble with the technology they had at the time. Then, other movies like X-Men Origins, Wolverine, just don't look good for their time. This doesn't have anything to do with X-Men: Days of Future Past though. The movie is beautiful, which is just one of its many good points. It makes the perfect dystopian Earth, and the Sentinels look like they could genuinely be real. It's also known for how beautiful some of the characters' superpowers look. Two of the most loved shots in the whole series are when Quicksilver slows down time and when Magneto lifts a stadium. While we're on the topic of futuristic movies, we also have the insane photorealism in Rogue One. Now, Star Wars has always been ahead of the curve when it comes to special effects, but the amazing science fiction effects in A New Hope put the movie on the map. One of the best visual effects companies in the world, Industrial Light and Magic, got its start making that movie. This is also true of Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Rogue One has almost 1,700 shots of visual effects made by ILM. These shots include digital recreations of actors Peter Cushing and Carrie Fisher that look like they were taken with a camera. The visual effects and action scenes, especially the final battle on the tropical planet Scarif, have a level of gritty realism that hasn't been seen in the saga since the Battle of Hoth. If you're into movies like these that revolve a lot around space, there's also the iconic 2001 A Space Odyssey. This has got to be one of the most famous movies ever made. One reason for this is that it just looks that good. By today's standards, they're pretty amazing. When the movie was made in 1968, these things were still pretty new. So you can imagine the kind of reception a movie like this could have gotten back then. Without using any CGI, A Space Odyssey simulates space travel and more. In the movie, everything is real and done by hand. Its strange images are the result of artistic work and Stanley Kubrick's vision as the film's director. Speaking of artistic work, there's a movie that shows an incredible reimagining of a city. Yep, you probably know what we're talking about. It's Blade Runner 2049. The visual effects in Blade Runner 2049 have a long and proud history. The way Blade Runner shows a dystopian Los Angeles is one of the most famous and often copied looks in movie history. Basically, Blade Runner is a grim, realistic-looking science fiction movie that changes what it means to be grim and grimy This movie is one of the few sequels that is even better than the original. The visual effects were made by Framestore, which gave the movie almost 300 VFX shots. The world in this movie is also darker and more interesting than in the first movie. Also, all of its other effects, like those on the AI character Joy, are completely smooth. While we're taking a darker turn when it comes to these movies, let's also take a look at Titanic's recreation of an infamous and epic disaster. Now, Titanic is different from other movies that have similar plots. It does this mainly because its visual effects are so good. The sinking of the ship named Titanic is portrayed in this movie in a horrifying way. It shows how a huge cruise ship breaking up and sinking causes panic, chaos, and a lot of damage. Titanic uses a lot of computer-generated imagery, but many of its effects are real. In particular, the famous scenes of the ship breaking in half use a model that has been improved by CGI. Many shots of people falling off the ship are made by the computer because doing it in real life would be too dangerous. Then, there's a movie that made a CGI character look scarily real. What we're talking about here is The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers is the second movie in the trilogy made by Peter Jackson, and all three of these movies are known for having amazing visuals. They show huge battles, scary monsters, and fantasy kingdoms in a beautiful and realistic way. But there is something else that makes The Two Towers stand out. Gollum is a very important part of the story of Frodo and Sam. He was the first character to use motion capture in a movie. Andy Serkis's movements make him look like a totally made-up creature. Fun fact, Weta Digital did most of the visual effects for the movie. They used rotomation and keyframe tracking to make Gollum look just like Andy Serkis's motion capture performance. Then, there's another character that was very well created in a movie, and that's Thanos in Avengers: Infinity War and Avengers: Endgame. Joe and Anthony Russo are in charge of both Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame, which are the 19th and 22nd parts of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're the first full-length movies to be shot entirely in digital IMAX. This was made possible by new camera technology from the Arri Group. Together, Infinity War and Endgame have more than 5,000 VFX shots. Imagine that! Apparently, Industrial Light and Magic, Framestore, DNEG, and several other studios did the work. They used CGI to show alien planets, superpowers, and other fantastical things in the movie. But the villain Thanos is definitely the best thing about it. Josh Brolin's voice work and motion capture work together with the CGI to make an alien-like character that's insanely believable. Did somebody say aliens? Because, boy, do we have something for you. Of course, it's Aliens. Okay, so Aliens takes its predecessors' award-winning special effects and makes them even better. The movie shows a dark and bad future and makes it seem real. The dirty colony on LV-426 and the many spaceships in the movie look like they were actually filmed in real places. But the best thing about Aliens is the creatures. Its horde of xenomorphs looks and acts like real monsters and is very scary. They move around in a cruel way, cut up several cast members, and burst out of the chest of colonists who can't do anything about it. All of them look real and very physical. The use of costumes and miniatures works well because the camera work and editing are so good. That's it for the movies with the most amazing visual effects. Hope you had fun. See you in the next one.